Welcome to War Bios, the podcast where we delve into the most pivotal battles in history, and I'm your host, General Biography. Today, we're going to explore one of the most infamous conflicts in European history, the Battle of Waterloo, fought on June 18, 1815. This clash of arms marked the culmination of a decade of warfare that had ravaged the continent, pitting the brilliant but beleaguered French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte against a coalition of British and Prussian forces led by the Duke of Wellington and Field Marshal Gebhard von Blücher. In 1814, after a disastrous invasion of Russia and a series of costly battles in Germany and France, Napoleon was forced to abdicate the throne and exiled to the island of Elba. However, his banishment would prove short-lived. The news of Napoleon's escape sent shockwaves throughout Europe, prompting the Seventh Coalition, comprising Britain, Prussia, Russia, and Austria, to mobilize their armies once more. The Duke of Wellington, fresh from his victories in the Peninsular War, was tasked with leading the Anglo-Allied forces, while Field Marshal Blücher would command the Prussian army. As these forces converged on the French border, Napoleon knew that he had to act swiftly to defeat them before they could unite and overwhelm him. In the spring of 1815, Napoleon began to rebuild his army, drawing upon the loyalty of his veteran troops and the enthusiasm of new recruits. He also set about reorganizing his military structure, creating a more streamlined and efficient command system that would allow him to respond quickly to the changing circumstances of the battlefield. Meanwhile, Wellington and Blücher were busy assembling their own forces, coordinating their strategies, and preparing for the inevitable clash with Napoleon's army. Napoleon's forces were massing near the Belgian border, while Wellington's Anglo-Allied army was gathering around Brussels, and Blücher's Prussians were marching towards the city of Namur. The roads and fields of Waterloo, a small village south of Brussels, would soon become the backdrop for one of the most famous battles in history. In the days leading up to the battle, Napoleon's forces were on the move, probing the enemy lines and seeking to exploit any weaknesses. On June 15, 1815, Napoleon's cavalry clashed with Wellington's advance guard near the town of Quatre Bras, marking the beginning of a series of skirmishes and engagements that would culminate in the Battle of Waterloo. The French army was pushing northwards, attempting to drive a wedge between the Anglo-Allied and Prussian forces, while Wellington and Blücher were racing against time to concentrate their troops and prepare for the impending battle. As the French army pushed northwards, Napoleon's forces encountered Wellington's Anglo-Allied army near the village of Waterloo on June 18, 1815. The French army, bolstered by Napoleon's tactical genius and the loyalty of his veteran troops, was determined to crush the coalition forces and secure a decisive victory. The battle began around 11:30 am, as Napoleon's artillery bombarded the Anglo-Allied positions on the ridge near La Haie-Sainte, a strategic farmhouse that controlled access to the main road to Brussels. The French infantry, led by Marshal Michel Ney, advanced in column formation, seeking to break through the enemy lines and shatter Wellington's army. Meanwhile, Napoleon's cavalry, under the command of Marshal Emmanuel de Grouchy, probed the Prussian forces on the eastern flank, attempting to prevent them from joining the battle. As the French artillery pounded the Anglo-Allied positions, Wellington's troops held firm, despite suffering heavy casualties. The Duke of Wellington, observing the chaos unfolding before him, remained calm and resolute, directing his generals to reinforce the weakening points in the line. One of the most pivotal moments of the battle occurred around 1:00 p.m. when Napoleon's infantry launched a massive assault on La Haie-Sainte. The French troops, led by General Charles Lefebvre Desnouettes, stormed the farmhouse, but were repelled by the determined defenders, who included the brave and battered soldiers of the King's German Legion. As the French retreated, they left behind hundreds of dead and wounded, including many high-ranking officers. As the battle raged on, Napoleon became increasingly concerned about the delay in the arrival of his reserve troops, led by Marshal Grouchy. The French commander had expected Grouchy to attack the Prussians from the east, thereby preventing them from joining forces with Wellington's army. However, Grouchy's corps was slow to arrive, and when it finally did, it was too late to make a decisive impact on the battle. Meanwhile, on the eastern flank, the Prussian forces under General Gebhard von Blücher were making steady progress, pushing back the French cavalry and infantry. As the Prussians advanced, they began to outflank Napoleon's army, threatening to cut off their lines of retreat. The French commander, realizing his predicament, ordered his Imperial Guard to prepare for a final, desperate assault on the Anglo-Allied positions. As the Imperial Guard prepared for their final assault, Napoleon's situation grew increasingly desperate. The Prussians were closing in on his right flank, while Wellington's army remained entrenched on the ridge, awaiting the decisive blow. Around 7:00 p.m., the Imperial Guard, led by General Antoine Drouot, launched a last-ditch attack on the Anglo-Allied positions near La Haye-Sainte. The French troops fought valiantly, but they were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. As the Imperial Guard wavered, the Prussians delivered the coup de grâce, attacking the French right flank with renewed ferocity. Napoleon's army began to disintegrate, and by 8:00 p.m. the battle was all but over. The French emperor, realizing his cause was lost, abandoned the field, leaving behind thousands of dead and wounded soldiers. In the aftermath of the battle, Napoleon's forces retreated in disarray, pursued by the victorious coalition armies. On June 22, 1815, Napoleon abdicated for the second time, marking the end of his reign and the fall of the French Empire. The Battle of Waterloo had far-reaching consequences, shaping the course of European history for centuries to come. As the great historian Georges Lefebvre once observed, Waterloo was not just a battle, it was a turning point in the history of Europe. The battle marked the end of French hegemony and the rise of Britain as a dominant world power. It also led to the redrawing of the European map, with the Congress of Vienna establishing a new balance of power that would shape international relations for decades. Today, the Battle of Waterloo is remembered as a pivotal moment in history, a testament to the bravery and sacrifice of the soldiers who fought and died on those bloody fields. The battlefield itself has been preserved as a memorial, with numerous museums, monuments, and commemorative sites honoring the memory of the fallen. The legacy of Waterloo continues to influence our understanding of warfare, diplomacy, and international relations. It serves as a reminder of the devastating consequences of conflict and the importance of cooperation and diplomacy in maintaining peace and stability. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.